And welcome back. Let's see. We're gonna get started again. Um, Title of this slide: Centering Equity in EV Adoption. So we're gonna try to get to the point and start, sharing some ideas, some concepts with you. The first thing that we're gonna look at is important concepts. What does it mean to be to be a frontline community, and what does it mean to be an underserved to live in underserved areas? You can read the description there, and basically, in our own experience, what we have seen before is that yes, the frontline communities typically are the ones that experience the worst, the experience it first, and they experience the worst consequences of, in this case, in our case, it's climate change. But every single policy, every single thing that we do has to do with those communities are the first ones that get impacted. And we have a small list, but as Isamar mentioned before, there is not a one size fits all. And we also don't, I don't think we have all the different communities that one way or another get are part of this group. In terms of the underserved areas, we have the frontline community members. They typically tend to live in these secluded areas. Okay, so just to give you an example, my when I used to work in the area of North and Fort Collins, going back to one of the biggest experience that I had is the Latino community with the Latino community. The Latino community tend to live on these mobile home parks. They gather together because it's cheaper for them to get access to that. They get together, two families on one home. I mean, there is so many things, and those places are typically outside the city limits. They're typically close to big places that are polluting the environment. They typically are. I mean, it's because of the accessibility for them, and they don't have any other options. So it's the underserved areas are typically habitated by frontline communities. We have a little cartoon character on the slide where everybody is looking at the small bell curve on the left. That's representing the pandemic, and scientifics are saying, it's they'll be happy when this is over, but behind them there is a big thing coming up, and that's climate change and other things that are happening. And you never know. There is always a new thing that is going to come, and it's going to affect these frontline communities. Typically, when that happens, is we experienced it during the pandemic. It was tough. It was really hard. It was an opener for many people, many groups, and also they had to find ways to survive. Okay, please, if you have questions or you have any comments, use the little hand and let us know. I cannot see your the screen, so if somebody, Berenice is gonna keep monitoring that screen and see if somebody has a question or a comment or some concerns. All right, wanted to show you this part is what is the what is it what is the difference between equality, equity, equality, justice. I mean, it's these little images here. Uh, to me, they have a lot of meaning in general. And you can see on the left side we have the reality. That's barriers are there. The fence is there. That represents the barriers. That is typically the norm. This is what happened with those frontline communities, with disproportionately impacted communities. And some people, like the one on the left, has more boxes, and that means they have better access to the view, to everything. It's what has been happening for years now, and it just keeps happening. Equality, what does that mean? Now everybody gets the same box. They are at the same level, but it doesn't consider the size of the spectators that are trying to watch the game. Equity is when you provide all those little things that the shorter spectators need to be able to see to have a plain view of the field. That's equity, and that's how they're trying to represent it here. But now we go to the next level. What is justice? What does that mean? What does that really means in terms of equity, equality, and things? Well, the topics that we're talking about here, and it's represented here as there's no fence, there is no systemic barriers, there is not no more things that block your view, and it doesn't matter what kind of access or what kind of help or what kind of things it's available. It doesn't matter because you don't have those barriers anymore, and then you can see the playing the full game, the whole thing. You can see it because there is no barriers. And finally, the last drawing tells you what inclusion is. Inclusion is when you're not an spectator anymore. You are part of part of the game. You are a participant of the game. You are there providing your input, your talents, your knowledge, uh, because it doesn't matter who you are. We all have experiences and we all have something to provide. So that's kind of I wanted to go over this so that we kind of understand the concepts that we're talking about here. Does anybody have any questions before I move to the next slide? Any comments? Berenice, you can keep an eye on that, on those hands, please. Okay, gonna give you 2 more seconds. All right, let's move over. Okay, so going back to the next. Okay, so the question is here when we talk about this in the activity that we had before, but what I need you to do right now is to go into the chat and then just give me one way that how do you engage with communities. You mentioned some of these before, but I want to kind of get an idea. What is it that you're doing today? Is it email? How do you engage with the community when you're going to do an event? Is it email? What's your favorite way? Email, I mean, so many ways. I put it on my website. So can you please type on the chat and give me your, what is your favorite way to engage today? How do you engage with these communities? It doesn't matter which community we're talking about. It's just getting an idea on what is it that you're looking at. Okay, so Jenna, I have some of you comments there. There is many ways to engage with the community. Okay, so give you a couple more. Okay, AJ, in person, great. In person is important always. Email, social media, in-person meetings. Okay. All right. So you can keep typing if you like. Some of the things. Then how do you engage? We have asked this question through all this time that we have been doing this the last several years. We ask this question to different audience, and there is always it's a common denominator. There are things that are typically how we engage with community, and one of the things that we notice is that these are when we compile all those answers, and if you also look at some of the answers that we are here in the chat, you can see them here: website, newsletter, text messages, feedback meetings, website, also video, social media, online reviews, reward programs, emails, blogs. I mean, there is all kinds of different ways to communicate with when you're trying to reach out the community, and that is great. That is, if one were to use a method of communication, this is a really good list of things that you need to do, and it's really good that you're doing that. And at the same time, I think there is more that we can do, and that's something that we're gonna try to go over right now. So, okay, so first of all, one concept that we have mentioned before in some of our meetings and some of the presentations that we have done, it's the concept of targeted universalism. Okay, so targeted universalism, it's a concept that where you pretty much go through the a strategy, four-step strategy to kind of understand to implement targeted universalism, and the four steps are right here so that you can go over that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a small video that we found on the web that will give you a perspective, a better perspective of what targeted universalism is.
What is the most effective and sustainable policy response to problems in our society? Universal approaches are widely used in order to package policies for broad appeal. Universal policies such as Social Security and minimum wage provide the same benefits or minimum protections to everyone, regardless of status or group membership. But by treating everyone the same, universal approaches can't root out group-based discrimination. It may actually deepen inequality between groups rather than reduce it. And by providing benefits or protections to everyone, resources that could be targeted to groups worse off instead flow to those who are better off. In contrast to universalism, targeted approaches are commonly used. Targeted policies provide benefits or protections based on group membership or status. SNAP, the food stamp program, conditions benefits on income level. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires public accessibility for disabled groups. And affirmative action focuses on historically disadvantaged groups. Targeted approaches are vulnerable to the critique that they unfairly favor constituent groups over the public good by directing resources to marginalized groups who are already subjected to unfair stereotypes. But universal and targeted approaches are false choices. There is a third way, targeted universalism. Targeted universalism means setting universal goals that can be achieved through targeted approaches. This approach targets the various needs of each group while reminding us that we're all part of the same social fabric. This can be accomplished by following 5 steps. First, set a universal goal. For example, 100% proficiency in 8th grade math. Second, measure how the overall population fares relative to the universal goal. In this example, we might discover that only 80% of 8th graders are proficient in 8th grade math. Third, measure the performance of population segments relative to the universal goal. So although 80% of all 8th graders are proficient, we might find that only 70% of Latinx students are proficient. Fourth, understand how structures and other factors support or impede groups' progress toward the universal goal. For our Latinx students, classroom instruction materials and lessons designed for English speakers may impede learning, including math proficiency. Finally, implement targeted strategies so that each and every group can achieve the universal goal based upon their needs and circumstances. This may take the form of ESL-specific math tutoring for our Latinx students, while another group may require a completely different strategy to achieve the same universal goal. Targeted universalism rejects a blanket universal, which may be indifferent to the reality that different groups are situated differently relative to the institutions and resources of society. By aspiring toward shared universal goals, targeted universalism empowers targeted strategies capable of achieving those goals while moving us beyond concerns over disparities alone and toward our highest aspirations for all.
So what do you think about targeted universalism and what that is? Anyone?
I mean, one thing that I just really like is just, yeah, it just shows about how all of our communities and how different regions are all completely different and how our goals can be different, but to figure that stuff out to make sure that everybody's on that same level and makes it fully universal for anyone, either they're disabled or if they're from a disproportionate community, things like that. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, thank you, AJ. Anybody else? Any comments? I love the fact that they put it in perspective on what universalism is. It's like Social Security, right? It's for everybody. So that's universalism. It's the program that helps everybody. Universalism. Now, when it comes down to targeted approaches, then we're looking at the SNAP. This everybody knows the SNAP is the food programs that some people that have needs apply for, low income typically, and so that only benefits that. Affirmative action. It's you probably heard that recently they just um, sue Harvard University because they wanted them to stop using affirmative action to recruit some more diversity into their program. So it's one of those things that's a targeted approach, whereas targeted universalism is a little more complex and it takes a little more steps, but it's not. So what do you all think?
I just want to assure that when you frame or you design a strategy based on targeted universalism, you make easier for all that has the most need to participate. And I always give this example, like when I design an energy efficiency project, right? I need to design it for someone that, lives in mobile homes, is monolingual speaker, it's, I don't know, single parent, and and lives at below the median income. When you design a program for this person to participate, that for the others will be easier to join your initiative or your program. I just wanted to add that, Jose Luis.
Thank you. And Rebecca, I thought you were going to say something. I saw your reaction.
Well, I think it's really relevant and important that one does not fit all, and that you do have to address it, and each one of it is a different tactical way to go about it.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. Anybody else? No. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to the 4 steps that we're recommending here, and let me see. Okay. So, all right. So we have 4 steps. Number 1, establish a universal goal. That's interesting. What are you trying to accomplish? Number 2, analyze progress towards the goal by the whole community and its subsets. So now we're talking the whole community, but also targeting the specific subset that you want to focus on. And finally, and then number 3, you have to analyze systemic barriers, structures that impact progress toward goals by different groups, right? So it'll be completely different. My struggles to get something than the Native Americans, African Americans, different groups. And even within my community, the Latino community is not a monolithic community. So we do have different races, different people from different countries, different backgrounds. It's very different. I am a first generation, another first generation, but I migrated to the United States. My kids are first generation. My grandson is the second generation, and it's completely different. It's the approaches should be different. So that's why targeted universalism helps you understand what the differences are first, what the barriers are. My grandson doesn't have the same barriers as I did or as I do today. He doesn't have any problems with the language. He's Latino. He doesn't have any problems with the language. He's educated. I wasn't, and it's a different perspective. So it's even within the same community, there's differences. So that makes it really hard. But I think that when we put our heart into it and we want to really focus on the specific community that we're trying to benefit, that's when when targeted universalism works really well. Okay. Once you go through all that process, then you create a strategy and use that strategy to get to that community. So that's kind of the idea of what we're talking about here. Okay, so I'm gonna give you some little strategies that we implemented during the pandemic in general, things that we learned when we were going through all this big thing. in how using targeted universalism we were able to come up with a couple of little some ideas here that we put together, some bullets. It is not easy to get this done. It takes time. Organizations need to create and to put together a budget to make sure that you start working on this towards this goal. One of the things that worked for us during the process is cultural brokers. The idea of cultural brokers. It's one thing that is critical in the process, because let's say that your organization does not have any people from different backgrounds in your organization, and so there is so much you can accomplish by doing that. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but specifically for me, if I try to come with the work that I do, if I try to come into a restaurant, an Asian restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, when I try to go in there, they look at me, and everybody is, it's not welcoming to me, right? I don't feel welcome. They don't want to talk to me. I ask for the owner of that restaurant to provide them some resources or things like that. They tell me the owner is not here. And when a couple of visits later, I realized that was the owner that I was talking to, but she didn't want to talk to me because I don't look like her. I don't I don't speak their language. I don't do things that they're used to have that so that they can feel comfortable. So a culture broker, your champion is something, just an idea. If you have a budget, please start that way. You need to build trust via economic strategies. It's like okay, so we're working on this process to get the connection with these businesses or with this community or these things like that. Let's look at the economic strategies that we're trying to do. Do we have any budget to provide some rewards, to incentivize people to participate? When you go to talk to a community, one thing that we realized it was really critical for us is to first understand that the economic needs, it's really critical. We do a lot of work in sustainability, and we cannot come to a business or to a community member and say, you need to worry about you need to do this for the environment, you need to do this for the social. As you all know, the triple bottom line of it's includes the triple bottom line concept includes the economic, the social, and the environmental. If I want to talk to them environmental stuff, they're not going to listen to me if they're not making ends meet. So that's why it's critical for us to think about, okay, so when we're talking to the community, how is their situation? I think it was mentioned here before that if somebody doesn't have enough money to survive, they're not going to be thinking about investing money on an electric vehicle. They're not going to be thinking about what can I do to recycle or to compost, or it's that's out of their scope. They're trying to survive, and that's the main thing that we need to recognize. Once you talk to them, start to look at what is the low-hanging fruit that what is it something, an easy small win that you can accomplish by providing the services that you're bringing to them. That is important because there is always something that you can do for them that can help you get your foot in the door. That's critical too. An equity infrastructure. When we talk about translations, and things like that, it is not enough to translate. I think we need to go the extra step. Interpretation, translation is a lot of companies and organizations that we talk to. They say that they have Google Translate on their websites. That is not enough. Google Translate doesn't do a good job at it, and your organization doesn't look good when you have a translation with a lot of misspellings and things like that. It's critical that you have spent some money on that professional translation, and even go further with that, what we call a transcreation. What that is not only the translation, which is perfect and is really really accurate, but also adapted to the community that you want to talk to. Okay, so there is different levels, as I mentioned before. Somebody that has an education will understand some concepts, some technical concepts. The people that do not have any education, there is community members that didn't go to school at all. they don't know how to read and write, and they don't know, or they don't understand big concepts. So when it comes down to, and we'll cover this in a minute, talk about electric vehicles or any of the environmental movements that are happening, they just don't understand that at that level when you talk technical. So that's important to make sure that we do that. One thing that we have here is shadow cultural broker. So you hire a cultural broker that's going to help you. And I'll give you an example. I couldn't get through the restaurant, the Asian restaurant, the Chinese restaurant. What did I do? I hired somebody that could come that spoke Mandarin, and it was from China. This person was a student from China. We hired them. He came with us. He immediately when he started talking to the owner, she opened up immediately. She started talking to him. They talked things about their city and things like that. And finally, we were able we were shadowing this person, and we were able to get introduce ourselves. And from that point on, the owner of that business trusted us, and now we can go back and keep working with her. So it's we also have another example when we were doing the work with the Latino community in Longmont. Berenice got together with with Matt, who was he didn't speak any English, he didn't speak any Spanish. I mean, he didn't speak any Spanish, so she got him in. He got involved, and by them looking at him and working, he trying to learn a little bit from them. It was like shadowing the broker, which in this case was Berenice. He, made huge accomplishments there, and the community started trusting him because he was there. So it's if you hire somebody, go with them, visit the communities with them. Don't burn the champion. Typically, when we are in organizations, they try to make us translate everything. So we always end up being the official translators for the organization, and we stop doing our work because it's too demanding. So it's make sure that you find a good balance for your broker or your people. Meet people where they are, have meaningful conversations, use non-traditional communication channels. WhatsApp is very popular with the Latino community. There's other things that other applications, other systems of communication that will work for you depending on the community. Talking about targeted universalism. Adapting the systems. Sometimes if you work for an organization, they have rules, and sometimes you have to kind of move a little bit, out of the comfort level to make sure that you can accomplish that connection with the community. You can do things. That doesn't mean you're breaking the rules. You're just modifying the rules a little so that you can get through it. There is so many, rules sometimes that it's impossible for us to do or work. Diversify your staff. I've been in a couple of organizations where they always have openings and they're trying to reach out to the communities, but they never hire bilingual people. They are never required bilingual people. So that's if you're trying to focus on a specific demographic, okay, require a Mandarin as a second language, and you will get people that will apply for it. So it start moving the system. It's important to diversify not only your staff but also the management level. So once you get people that are diverse, multicultural, or multilingual, let's start putting them in positions where if I go to an organization and I see that one of the leadership members looks like me and understands my culture, I'll be more tempted to stay there because I feel like a connection in there. So those are kind of some of the things that we are really like to mention about this. The BIPOC and the disproportionately impacted communities, we do have a lot of people that are early adopters too. As Berenice mentioned before, there is a lot of us that drive electric vehicles, and since we're talking about that here, there's a lot of us. We just got together with 5 Latino and Latinas EV owners that have been driving. I've been driving my electric car for almost 5 years now. So we are early adopters. We just need to, and we can be your leaders in terms of trying to convince other people. That's the reason why in our events that we're promoting here and we are trying to put together, we're going to have experienced EV drivers at the table so that the people from the community can talk to us and can say, can ask the questions that nobody has been able to answer before. So that is important. In general, opportunities, equitable EV adoption can provide environmental, social, and economic opportunities. And for the barriers, DI communities face unique barriers to EV adoption, which this must be considered in the engagement process. It's important that we do those. There's opportunity and there is barriers too. All right, so what are we talking about? Barriers. Financial. We put together some of the barriers that we thought are critical within the community, and this doesn't apply to all, but in general, I think it's something important. And now I'm going to be talking about the Latino community specifically. For us, is we rely on cash most of the times. Okay, first generation people that come in here, migrants in general, when we come here, we start working, we don't understand the system. We always work with cash. If someday you have a chance, stop by one of those popular Mexican stores in your community. Just stand next to the cashier, pretending you're just kind of a shopping, and look at the transactions. Almost everybody is paying with cash. Okay, so what does that mean? It's like we're invisible to the system. So we're not going to have a good credit. Okay, banks are not going to work with us because of that. And some banks don't take an ITIN number. What an ITIN number is, for those of you that don't know, ITIN is what migrant communities, when they come into this country and they're undocumented, they get assigned an ITIN number. Why? Because the federal government wants them to pay taxes. Okay, so as an undocumented immigrant in this country, I get assigned, I have to apply, and I get assigned a number that's equivalent to the Social Security, so that when I work, I can pay my taxes. When I report at the end of the year, I can pay my taxes. They want my money. They want to get my taxes, right? I don't get the benefits, but I have to pay taxes. So that ITIN number, everybody has to have it if you don't have a Social Security. What that means is banks, there are some banks that will not take the ITIN number, so you don't get that account, that checking account. You don't get that savings account. You cannot open one because you don't have a Social Security, and they don't take the ITIN number. So what happens then? Everybody has to rely on cash. They buy the products on cash. I've seen people go to the used car lot and pay $20,000 for a big troca. They call it troca. So for the big troca, and they pay in cash. So they never build their credit history. So that is something to keep in mind. Of course, since banks don't take that ITIN number and they don't have a way to work with the bank, what happens is if they need a loan, they have to get these loans from different predatory loan people, sometimes organizations. They're charging $10, 10%, 15% interest rate a month, not compound full year interest rate. They do 10, 15% a month, and they have to pay that that amount, those amounts. Language access, not understanding the financial system, and the lack of social capital too. Those are financial barriers that the migrant community in this country face because of all those things. Okay, we're gonna move to the next one. Another barrier for EV driver adoption within the migrant community. In this case, we have, just think about it, apartment complex. You have a 20, 40 unit apartment complex. You live on the second floor, the third floor. Where are you going to charge your car when you get back home? Okay, there is not plugs outside, even the 110 plugs. They don't have anything for you adapted so that you can put it in there. Okay, mobile home parks. Sometimes there's two families living in one mobile home, and the power, it's enough just to provide electricity to the mobile home. I don't have an option to really plug in my electric car if I do in those two situations, and many others. Rural places also have the same issue. Um, Now, at work, so if I'm working cleaning offices at night, I go to a big medical building, and I get there and I start cleaning. If I have an electric vehicle, I don't have they will not let me plug in there my vehicle. If I'm a contractor, they have enough plugs for my tools when I'm working, and they don't have for me to place for me to plug in. So it's it, it's not a work benefit. Don't even mention that they're not going to give it to me for free. So I'm going to have to pay for that. Regional, low income and rural areas might lack charging stations. As you know, there's not, the infrastructure is not there yet. So we need to invest on that. And finally, the charging infrastructure is unreliable. I think I heard that 40% of the chargers are somehow not working, broken, or the application doesn't work. So there is not a single application that we can use all the time. So there is all these different brands and different things that you have to use. And people, of course, it's got the next barrier that we're going to be talking about here. Knowledge and perception. That's another problem that we have in the migrant community. Believes that the EVs are cost prohibitive. They don't have an idea how much an EV costs. They have never gone to the dealership or talked to somebody that can tell them this is the actual price they're going to be paying for. When and I'm gonna give you a little story. When I was trying to buy a car before, I went to the dealership, and the salesperson was, involving me into all this conversation about things like that. They gave me the what is it called, the MSRP price, right? $45,000. When I say, okay, so give me like a cut down. How much do I have to pay? When he went to the office and pretended to be working with somebody there. When they came back to me, it wasn't $45,000. It was $62,000. Why? I don't know. Somehow that price just went up, and based on that $62,000, they say, well, but we have a great discount for you, and we can give you $5,000 discount here, $2,000 here, and they came down to $58,000 or 55, something like that, which was higher than the MSRP. I say, no, I'm not going to buy it. Went away. The next day they call me and they say, I have another offer for you. And then it's like, okay, how come you didn't give me that offer at the beginning? Because they saw who I was. I guess it works with everybody like that, but those are the experiences that we face. So the range anxiety and reliability is one big problem in terms of the knowledge and perception. One barrier. Cultural and political perceptions, lack of representation in EV owners, lack of representation in the marketing. We don't see those us represented there. Distrust in government. EVs can isolate the DI community. The events, it can isolate some communities. In terms of on the bottom, I have a couple of little icons there, and I heard this from the Latino community, migrant community. They have tell me, first of all, misinformation, safety. They say that the cars are built with aluminum nowadays because of the batteries are heavy, and it's like if you get into an accident, you're dead basically. That's what they think. Number two, the battery. How do they mine the materials for the mining and all those very dangerous chemicals, and how do they dispose of those batteries? It's going to be a big pollution problem 10 years down the road. And the famous power button. I don't know if you ever heard that, but the community thinks that some community members think that the government has access to the button that can shut down your electric vehicle because it can do updates and everything. They can, if they're looking for you, they can and they're chasing you, they can just click that button and then your car will go, will stop automatically. Okay, so that's another thing that I heard. over over some of the misinformation that is happening there, and perceptions that is expensive, that are not available. That the truck drivers, they say, no, 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 electric doesn't work for me because it doesn't have the power to haul. It doesn't have the power to do this. It doesn't. I mean, they're used to their big trucks, and they don't want diesel trucks. There's nothing for them that is better than diesel. So in terms of torque and in terms of power and things like that, the many cultural aspects. So, okay,
Jose Luis, I want to
yes.
pause a little bit here and just to ask the coaches if they have heard other barriers or misperceptions about this.
If you do, can you tell us? And if you don't want to tell us, put it in the chat, please. That will be great because there's so many things out there.
Yeah, no, I just want to flag that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because this is definitely something that I face on a daily basis here in my region. It's just there's so much misinformation that, that's what's really halting a lot of the, EV adoption down here in this region because, one person says one thing and then it just goes on from there. And then it's that communication. It's that type of, he said, she said that it's a problem for us, but the more that we're be able to educate and get that misinformation out of the equation, then hopefully we'll be able to move forward with everything. But you pretty much covered the majority of the stuff that I've heard. I mean, even in the media and then movies, people watch movies about different things and they freak out because like, oh, I'm gonna drive a Tesla and it's just gonna take off on me without knowing, or who knows what. I've even heard some people say aliens are gonna hack us or something. It's crazy out here.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Thank you, AJ. That's really good to know that you're hearing the same things that we were and we are. So there is a lot of crazy stuff. And the other thing that I heard is that the Russians, the Russian hackers, can control the whole. Once they hack into the system, Tesla system or Chevy's, they can just shut down the whole thing and stop every single car in the country from moving. Any electric vehicle, of course.
Yeah, I usually tell people I'm like, you need to be less worried about your car being hacked and more worried about your phone. Your phone's easier to hack than anything, so you should be worried about that than a
Yeah,
car.
yeah. So I think that's the reason why we put this slide together, because there is so many things, so many factors that affect or or vision in general to see what the benefits that prevents us from looking at the benefits versus the cost and things like that. So also I heard some experiences from people that have gone through the process of buying a vehicle. There's so many things out there, so many barriers when you sit down with the sales representative from Tesla or from Chevy, and they're trying to get the most money out of you, and they don't tell you about the specifics, and they don't answer any question. They just it's a nightmare going through that process. So, anybody else? Anything you heard?
Um, and that
Yes.
idea of like not predatory lending, but just maybe a little bit of like not dissimilar to the experience you were sharing of dealerships trying to um, like take advantage of the buyer, depending on like if you're a woman by yourself or like different kind of identities you have and how that can play into like preconceived notions about how you can operate when you're purchasing a vehicle. And just from like our staff at Drive Clean, like them going through the purchasing process as well as like coaching folks and their lived experience around purchasing vehicles, I've heard a lot of mixed information, which I would definitely think is like a barrier if a lot of folks are having negative experiences at dealerships.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as we mentioned before, it depends on who you are. It's a different experience. So and that's why I think sometimes we think, okay, the Latino community, the African American community, veterans have a different experience. Women has a different experience. I mean, it's like everybody has to go through that process. It just makes it harder for some specific demographics. So if you add a woman, right, a woman's case, going through that process, and a woman that doesn't speak English, that's another piece that will completely change their experience going through this process. Somebody that comes in and gets it's all excited about buying a new electric vehicle. I have a good job. I have all these things. Then they look at my credit history. I don't have a credit history because I've been using cash for a lot of stuff, and I just haven't built it. And then that's when all those things that happened. That when I tried this, they were offering me 0% interest rate, right, for 5 years if I qualify for that. Okay, so I don't qualify. I didn't ask for, but if I don't qualify, then they'll give me a 10% interest rate, which makes a huge difference at the end of the 5 years. So it's all kinds of different barriers that we face. Okay. Do we have any more comments? Any experiences that you want to talk about?
I mean, just real quick, back to dealerships, it's the business aspect that, dealerships always think of too. They see it as of a bad thing to push an EV versus a regular vehicle just because of the maintenance. Their money maker is the maintenance. That person, that buyer, that consumer to come back and bring that vehicle in for an oil change or for, any of those types of things. Well, you don't do that with EVs. So, where's that going to be coming back from? So that's another factor. I'm just creating a bad experience at dealerships. So big barrier for sure.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. It's all kinds of different. I mean, so many barriers that we don't think about until we hear about them or that we experience ourselves. So that's why I think it's important to keep our minds open when we go and do all these events. Try to be as concise and as specific. And also, I think we need to also government in general needs to be more regulating in terms of regulating more these dealerships that get to get away with a lot of stuff that is it could even be illegal to do, but they have the power to do it. So yeah. All right. Thank you for the feedback. Anything else? All right. If you have any more ideas, please put it in the chat. We will compile those notes and I will share it with you once we are done with this section. Okay. All right. So those are some of the things. And now when we come down, we mentioned this language and technology. Of course, language access is critical. It's another barrier. That's a different and we talk about that. Comfort with access to computers. A lot of people don't have a computer, even though we are on the year that we are. A lot of people do not have a computer. A lot of people rely on their cell phone, and the cell phone screen is very small, and there's a lot of limitations to sharing files and things like that we don't have. So I'll give you a small story about when the pandemic hit. All these school districts around northern Colorado came up with the idea, so everybody has to take classes from home, right? All right, so let's send a laptop to every household so the kids can attend school and can go to can do all this. So a 7-year-old with a laptop came to their house and okay, mom, I have my laptop. I'm gonna be taking classes here. What happened? The parents didn't know how to turn on the laptop. That was the first barrier. Okay. Then the next step is okay. So I can turn it on now. I can. How do I connect it to internet? All right. So here's a hotspot for you that we provided. The tower that I'm relying on with this hotspot is 7 miles away from my house. I don't have a reception. But before that, they had to learn how to plug in the internet, how to connect to the hotspot. So those are things that we don't think about, but I mean it's reality, and And it's what's happening. Computers are not universal around here. And smartphones. I know a lot of people that still using the flip phone that doesn't have a screen; it just has the numbers. So, I mean, how are they gonna read your emails? How are they gonna check your the screen to go and see your website? There's considerations that we need to keep aware of that we need to start looking into. And finally, the digital gap, as I mentioned before, when it goes down to the app, I have experienced this. I've been driving an electric vehicle for 5 years, and every time I go to another town that is not the place where I live in, because here in Loveland, where I live, I know the chargers that are working, and I know what application they're using. But every time I go out of my comfort zone, if I go to Greeley, if I go to Denver, if I go to other places, I'm struggling to find a working charger, one that is compatible with the app that I'm using, and one that is like that is affordable. Because if you plug into the supercharger, it's fast, but it's super expensive too. So it's and finding a supercharger is difficult for me. I cannot, I'm too old to be driving and checking my phone and finding places using Google Maps. Too old for that. I have to focus on one thing at a time. So it's really hard to be multitasking while you're driving in Denver. And so it's a big barrier. So I heard that Norway has like 85% of their vehicles in Norway are electric, but the first thing that they decided to tackle was the infrastructure. That's the first thing they did. And they got it done, and the adoption has been easy because the infrastructure was there. Even McDonald's and Burger King in Norway has chargers outside, 20 chargers, because they saw the business value of doing that. Because now people have to wait 20 minutes for the car to drive, and they go into the restaurant to eat, right? While they wait for the vehicle to get some charges. So it's it's very common. So that's another barrier that we have here. All right. Any other comments about this? No?
I have a comment. So I just wanted to flag QR codes in materials. I mean, QR codes might be efficient, but also it depends on the community that you're working with. Some don't even have the QR code reading enabled. So yeah, something to keep in mind. And then this is more of a question. I'm curious to know if recharge coaches promote Charge Ahead Colorado. Is that something part of your metrics?
I see a lot of hands, a lot of heads saying yes.
Okay, and then who do you do outreach to folks about Charge Ahead Colorado, or do you help folks with the application process? And if you do outreach, who are you targeting in that outreach?
So we help with the application process. We can't write the application for them. So they fill it out, and then we can provide feedback for them on Charge Ahead. And then for outreach, really just anyone who would benefit from mainly like level 2 chargers, so like workplaces, multifamily housing, businesses, rural areas, health centers, just a wide variety. Also, Jenna, you're kind of like cutting in and out, so we can't really hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add on to Millie's comment though. So yeah, pretty much anybody who's wanting to use those chargers for public facing. So it does open a wide variety of the people that we outreach to. Then it's just definitely going from there, making sure that Charge Ahead is a great program for them, and making sure that they qualify for all the requirements that are necessary for it as well, which can be difficult in different areas, different regions, just going back to like how different regions are different and the demographics are also different. So just trying to analyze all that information too is part of what we do.
Okay, perfect. That's just what I wanted to know, Jose Luis. We
Yeah,
can go back to the presentation. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you, Isamar. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Uh, I, I love it when it's interactive, when we hear your voices and we can kind of all give our opinions. So thank you, Isamar. All right. So um, opportunities, interactive conversation. Um, Okay, when we talk about EV transition, okay, and prioritizing equity and that transition, it can bring some opportunities to not only to us, the community, the economy, everything. It's job creation is a big one. I think there is a lot of opportunity. I saw some incentives like some. I remember talking to, I think, is it the Department of Transportation? I think they were talking about giving some tools and some training to people from the community so they can become technicians for EV drivers, right? Or the mechanics, the new mechanics. That's opportunities everywhere. If we want to adopt that, then we start. I mean, if you look at it, as I mentioned before, other countries have up to 80% of their vehicles are electric. So that's the future. And the way everything is going, everybody's pushing for electrification and it's the future. So why don't we prepare our workforce to be able to be part of it? We're gonna get improved air quality for the overburden communities for sure. As we get those cars, those polluting cars out of the field, I think we're gonna get some benefits there. The gasoline burning also. It's for I was like shocked when one of those contractors was sharing with me how much money they spend because they live in Fort Collins, they go to work to in Denver, they drive this Ford F-350 with dual axle with a big trailer pulling. They do roofing. They go all the way to Denver to do a job. It's like, my gosh, it's 8 gallons per mile they give me, and it's like they drive like almost 200 miles in a day. So just do the numbers. It's how much money they're spending on that. I mean, it's incredible. And that's only one contractor. So it's there is opportunities there for sure. If we can make the case that we can show them, that they have the same power to go around. If they have to go to Denver, of course, I was talking to the general manager at the Ford dealership, and he has one of those, and he say he pulls 8,000 pounds on his truck, and it's no problem with the truck, and it's even faster at the beginning. Also, the battery goes down faster, of course, because he's pulling all this load, but they have 300 mile range, so it's like okay, so you're not gonna get 300, you're gonna get 150 miles. Plan accordingly, but you're going to be saving at the end of the day all these numbers. Those little numbers add up a lot. I was doing like a class several years ago about budgeting, and this person from my audience, I asked this person to give me to do the numbers on the coffee from Starbucks that she was buying 2 times a day. At the end of the month, it was a big amount. It was like a lot of money. So if we can put it in perspective and say you're spending $700 a month in diesel, what's your benefit if you do the switch? Building trust and relationship with the community is important. Those are opportunities because as we are talking to them, as we're going there, we're building community contacts. We're building that relationship with them. Better quality of life for sure, and they will save some money. So it's some of the opportunities that we have seen that can be. The famous gasoline super users. Notice the truck on the image. That's the one that we tested last Saturday. It was kind of fun. I never driven anything like that before, so it was fun. By the way, Berenice was able to fit in there. She got in, and we just shut it down, and she was all happy. So there's plenty of space on that where the engine used to be. All right, so super users. The 10% of gas consumption in the United States is what the super users are doing today. This is the sources Cultura. I think it's in California, if I understand correctly, Berenice. But they did some research. They have some numbers, and these are their numbers, which is, Colorado has 266,000 super users, and this is the big contractors that I was talking about, the big truckers that are out there that are driving every single day back and forth, and it's 8.3% of the state drivers. They use 31% of the gasoline in the state. They spend 9.3% of their income on gas, compared to the state average at 3.1%. So it's interesting, and they often live on some of your regions. So that's as AJ was talking about, is like this majority of that. I've been to some towns where everybody's driving a big truck. Everybody. It's because they need it for their work, they need it for their ranch, they need it for their agricultural work. I mean, it's so many big trucks out there. Okay, so that's interesting to know. So some of the benefits that the Cultura looks at, if we prioritize super users, okay, it's they will have a 5x factor in the climate impact compared to other Colorado drivers. It will reduce the gasoline burden these drivers face if we focus on them. So that's a good opportunity. The problem will be convincing them, and a lot of you knows how hard it is to convince that, to start getting rid of all those assumptions, to start informing about what that is. Okay, so there's some more data in here that they listed on their report. Okay, so before we go to break, just wanted to get some feedback from you. This is the section where we analyze barriers, the different kinds of barriers, the different kinds of opportunities that we see that we can make an impact on these communities if we start focusing on what we talked about at the beginning, targeting universalism. What do you all think?
Yeah, before we go on break, anyone has any thoughts, reflections, like, oh my God, I never knew this. Aha moment.
I like to call it like AJ. I cannot pronounce that, AJ, so you're gonna have to say it for me, please.
What's that? The oohs and the ahs?
That I just can't say it.
Oohs and ahs.
Yeah. So those. Does anybody has any oohs on ahs? I
Okay.
have one, but it's a bad word in Spanish, so I cannot say that here. So
I just wanted to say that something that this article encourage is to support, to create incentives around the super users and super drivers, and that is cool, right? Because we're gonna put these super heavy trucks out of the road. But something that we have to consider is that California, they have that infrastructure, they have charger in every corner almost. So we need to be mindful when we create an incentive, like, yeah, we are have these incentives, great initiatives, but if we don't have the infrastructure, for example, many of the disproportionately impacted communities, they live in Weld County, and in Weld County there are not many superchargers or chargers. Like, how we can encourage all these contractors that usually they travel to, Larimer County, Fort Collins, and Boulder County, Boulder, they commute. It's always my comment when they want to encourage more public transportation or things like that, is just to think where these super drivers live, and if we have infrastructure to put in place these initiatives, is something just to keep in mind. And especially imagine rural communities. And After that, we can after this we can go to break, and we will see you at 1:37. Have water, bio breaks, check your email, and we're gonna see you for the last part of the show. Thank you, Jose Luis.
Thank you all. I'll see you in a while.